Hello and welcome to Hi, I Like Maths, which is all about how mathematics can improve our mental and intellectual abilities. This is not a technical show, so we're not going to talk about formulas or abstract stuff. It's mainly about challenges, problems, solutions, research, and discoveries in the world of mathematics and its applications. My name is Linda. I am the host of the show. I'm also an applied mathematician. I completed a PhD in it. I'm a maths educator and the founder of Bungee Pi, which helps children learn mathematics using storytelling, animations, and real-life applications. Today, I am honored to have Karen on my show. She's an amazing educator. She would like to talk about psychology of learning mathematics, which I think is as important as maths itself. This is one of my favorite topics, by the way. Karen has been a teacher for almost 20 years. She has taught primary and secondary students from kindergarten to year 10. In 2009, her experience saw her move into academia, where she was the numeracy advisor to primary pre-service teachers and was a lecturer in mathematics education for postgraduate and undergraduate students in preparation for primary teaching. Karen has been a member of the executive committee of the Mathematical Associations of New South Wales since 2003 and the primary associations for middle school mathematics since 2002. She was also the New South Wales representative councillor of the board of the Australian Associations of Mathematics Teachers for 5 years. She is the current president of Mathematical Associations of New South Wales. Karen is completing her PhD, a doctoral thesis, so she's going to be a doctor soon, examining primary pre-service teachers' attitude and self-efficacy in and toward mathematics. Her current role is as head of mathematics at Cluey Learning, which is a tech company providing learning support for students from year 2 to 12 across Australia. Welcome to my show, Karen. And before talking about psychology of learning mathematics, I would like to start asking some questions like, what did you want to be growing up?
Hi, Linda. Thanks so much for inviting me to come on board your show. It's a real joy. What did I want to be growing up? I think as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a teacher. That's really all I desired to be. I had a teacher in first class called Mrs. O'Rourke that really influenced me. She was compassionate. She was amazing. I still have a photograph of there was 44 of us in the class, if you can imagine. And that was standard for most classes in those days, which is a long time ago. And I had her in sixth class as well. But despite wanting to be a teacher, in my early life, so I was far back as I say, about 6 or 7, I used to put my dolls and my teddy bears sit them up on the couch and write up I had an easel blackboard and I used to write up sums, as it were. So it turns out that mathematics was always my passion, as it seems. So yeah, that it was that or nursing, but definitely teaching has been the passion.
Right. How lucky you are to find your passion quite an early on, because sometimes it takes years and years to find out what you're passionate about and, the things that you're interested in. Sometimes it takes a really, really long time. So tell me about your career path. So what has your career path looked like up to now?
Well, to be honest with you, despite finding that passion very early on, I didn't go into teaching straight away. I went and became a mum, got married, had 2 children, and it wasn't until I was 34 that I actually went back to university to pursue that passion. it took me a couple of years to believe in myself enough to think that I was capable of it. And I started off doing primary teaching. So I started in 2000 doing primary teaching and I did a sub-major in mathematics. So I developed a very, very strong interest in mathematics and the way students learn in maths. And then I moved into high school teaching after a few years, where I taught maths, religious studies, and creative arts, which is kind of a weird combination.
Wow.
But I taught them for several years, and I was the year advisor for year 7 for a number of years as well, and worked with some amazing teachers, some wonderful students, many of whom I'm still in contact with today, and they're all married with children of their own, which makes me feel quite old. But as you said, in 2009, I started that academic career, and I think that was probably where I found my niche. I've really felt very passionate about providing as much support as I possibly could for pre-service teachers going on to become primary school teachers.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great one, and I know how challenging it is working in this space. I'm going to ask you to share more details about it later. I know that you've done a PhD on pre-service teachers' attitude toward mathematics. And I think this is very important because I'm fully aware of the role of teachers in shaping children's life. I personally didn't have a positive attitude toward mathematics when I was doing my primary. In fact, I didn't even think that I am talented. I didn't even think that I'm able to solve maths problems. Things changed when we moved to a new city and for my high school, and then I found my new environment to be progressive. My peers were very hardworking, smart, and my teachers were very supporting. They picked that up. They found out that I am good at that, and they convinced me that I can pursue a career in mathematics. So I think if I didn't have that environment, I'd never been able to think that I am talented and I can do maths and I can, have a career later on in maths. So tell us about your experience of role of teachers.
Well, I hear what you're saying about teachers having a great influence, and research has pointed to that all right the way through over many, many years. So teachers have the biggest influence on students. And my own research came about as a result of interactions with students at the university, because I knew that they were going to go on to become pre-service or primary school teachers. And at some stage, some of them may or may not be teaching my grandchildren. And I just felt that it was a very important responsibility. And I thought that I could potentially make a change in them, or at least influence them towards thinking that they could be influential in their own teaching. What I used to do, and how my research came about, was because I surveyed all of them. So there might have been 300 of them in the lecture theatre, and I would survey them at the beginning of the semester, and I'd say, tell me what you think about maths. And invariably, for about 5 semesters in a row, there was the same 3 things that came out. 1/3 of them would say they were very confident. 1/3 would say sort of, meh, it's okay, I'm relatively confident. And the other 1/3 believed that they were no good at it. Frequently they would say things like, I don't have a maths brain, or I'm a more literacy and arts person, or I'm never going to be any good at maths because I was never any good at it at school. When have I ever used it, etc. And the other thing that I found was they often measured their own abilities by the number that was on the top of the test, and the number of ticks and crosses on the page. Yeah. And that was a big thing. And they often compared themselves to their peers, when in actual fact they weren't looking at their own ability. I guess it was their low self-efficacy and the belief that a person is born with a maths ability. And that was something that could be learned, or rather than something that could be learned and improved. I'm a firm believer, and as numeracy advisor, I worked with hundreds of pre-service teachers, And I used to say to them that musicians don't get good at their craft by leaving their instrument in the corner.
Yeah.
They actually pick it up and play it and practice it to perfect it. And, you know, Serena Williams didn't get 23 Grand Slams by watching Wimbledon. She hit the ball back and forward across the net until she got good at it.
Yeah.
And I guess as I observed the successful people, when I looked at successful people, I found that it was their personal motivation and their ability to self-regulate their behavior that actually influenced their success. So recognizing that 2/3 of my pre-service teachers had relatively somewhat high confidence, there was still a third that believed that they were never going to get any better. So their low confidence was certainly evident in the way they certainly spoke about mathematics. So I guess my question when I began this journey, the PhD journey, which I'm very close to submitting, was what were the factors that influence self-efficacy, and in particular, whether we could change a person's attitude while they were on their professional practice. And because I believe that a little bit of success goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it actually changes the way the brain thinks when they start to have a little bit of success. So I guess that's where the PhD came in. And I've learned a whole lot about not only my participants in the study, but also myself as a learner, because I can see where I fit into the way the brain thinks and the psychology of learning and the psychology of mathematics. So it's been a phenomenal journey.
Yes, I know how difficult your area of research and work is, how challenging it is. Before actually we met, I wrote a booklet and I called it The Maths Mind, which is all about psychology of learning mathematics, why maths, mathematics mindset, what are the factors that shape our attitude toward mathematics. And I shared my personal experiences and scientific research about this stuff. And I found a bunch of factors that are involved in shaping our attitude toward mathematics. Because I personally experienced having a negative self-perception about this subject, and then I changed during my secondary to someone who is positive about it and feels that is capable of doing maths because of the environment, because of teachers. I found that there bunch of factors involved in this attitude toward mathematics, and you are one of them. Particularly as a kid, you're not aware of how important your environment is, and how much influence you get from your peers, from your home environment, from your teachers. And the whole idea of learning mathematics and having a positive or negative attitude toward mathematics really depends on so many factors. So you're part of the game, your parents are another part, teachers are another, peers are another. It's a very complicated situation. And if you want to be good at it, if you want to have a positive self-perception about doing maths and being good at maths, you need all these factors to cooperate, right? So this is what I mainly talked about in that booklet. If any of you guys are interested in reading this booklet, you can easily go to bungeepie.com. Under free gifts, you can download it for free. I'll become very happy to get your feedback about it. So I would like to get your insight about the factors that are involved in shaping our attitude toward mathematics.
I guess in my own research, I've been looking at the work of self-efficacy guru and theorist Bandura, Albert Bandura, who his is really he is the basis of everything to do with social learning theory and self-efficacy theory. I also have delved into the work of Carol Dweck on fixed and growth mindset, which you probably have looked at as well.
Yeah.
And Joe Bowler, who has focused on fixed and growth mindset in mathematics in particular. Part of the reason that I did that was because I believe that our self-belief is our limit, that it is what limits our ability to grow and to learn.
Yeah.
And if we don't believe that we're capable, then we're automatically pigeonholing ourselves into a box where we won't be able to achieve, because I don't know who it was that said, if you believe that you can't or you believe that you can, then you're right.
That's true.
I think it might have been Henry Ford that said that.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
you know, and it's true, and it comes down to that belief. And I also believe that success plays a massive role in self-efficacy, in particular mastery over a topic or a concept or a task. So once you've experienced a little bit of success, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of success, but a little bit of success can make a big difference to resilience, to the risk in future ventures, vicarious experiences. So watching a person's be successful is good, but the best measure is actually mastering it yourself. And anybody can tell you you're capable, but it's probably the least effective way of you being able to work out whether you're going to be able to achieve a task or not. What I love about Joe Bowler and Carol Dweck is that they say, I can't do it yet. I can't do something yet. And that yet is what provides the unlimiting behavior. So it gives people a chance to say, it's okay, I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it now, but I will get it in the future, or I have the capacity to get it in the future. So I think those are probably the biggest contributing factors. Fixed and growth mindset is just, it's so important. And, you know, fixed mindset being the fact that you believe that you can't get any better at something. And that was what I saw in my students, where they would say, I'm never going to be any good at maths. And I can give you a little bit of an example of one of my participants who went, because I followed them through from the beginning, before they even went into their professional practice, to the end of their second professional practice. So I followed them for a year. Right. So I saw a temporal growth that went from before they even began the whole process right to the very end. So I was able to see that change and track that change. Right. And one of the things that I noticed, and you mentioned it a few moments ago about teachers and how they influenced you and influenced the way you thought about yourself as a learner. Yeah. Absolutely true. I had 4 participants that I followed through. All 4 of them had experienced negative experiences in school. One of them had been told by a teacher that she wasn't capable, so she believed she wasn't capable. One of them felt that she was an artsy English literacy brain. She was never going to be a maths brain. One of them was extremely capable, but had a teacher who didn't push that, so he disengaged. And the other girl, she had to do a higher level. Despite the fact that she was capable, she still believed that she wasn't any good at it. So all 4 of them had negative experiences in school. And so for me to be able to see that change, so one of them, the one that had the fixed mindset, who was the one that believed she was an artsy literacy person, she had a very bad experience in her first professional practice. Right. She believed the lesson completely derailed, and she believed that she was never going to be any good as a teacher. She felt so bad. But her teacher was able to support her to build her capacity when she went into when she retaught it. So she retaught it again and had some success with the second time round. Right. She had a similar experience in the second professional practice, right, but that professional practice, because she'd had a positive experience or a mastery experience in the first one, she didn't have the same bounce back and negative self-belief.
Right.
She actually handled it in a very different way, and firmly believed that she could capably continue on and teach it again effectively. So that's what I'm talking about. If you have a little bit of mastery, a little bit of success, it makes a massive difference to the future, regardless of whether you have a fixed or a growth mindset. So it was a phenomenal outcome to see that change in her, to go from where she had gone to where she ended up at the end.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. It's fascinating, isn't it? I personally think this is a valuable work. It's very important because I personally experienced how having a positive attitude toward your own abilities, it's important in shaping your future, your whole being, because I didn't have that when I was doing my primary, and then I changed because of my environment and my teachers later on, and they gave me self-trust that I can do this, and when I start working with kids at Bungie Pie, I've observed exactly the same thing. I have a student with learning difficulties, and when we met for the first time, he was at year 5, and he had a very poor maths background. He had absolutely no trust within himself about his ability to do this, to do maths and this, the hard stuff. And over time, I've observed how he has changed. I had a chat with him a few weeks ago, and I asked him, about his experience over the last 2 years, and he said, "I can't believe that I can handle things by my own. I can do things by my own at the moment," because he had such a dependency to his mom, to do his work, and he's able to break to pick that up, and he can, he gets so excited about doing the work and solving questions, and he started liking it, which is something that he didn't have that right at the beginning. And this is so important, because you are shaping somebody else's life. It's not about just the the maths and it's just few questions. It's about having a self trust that you can do this, you can handle that. So about the self-perception during our childhood, and its impact on our career later on as an adult, I would like to ask to share your opinion about childhood experience which influence on mathematics self-efficacy of adults.
We talked a few moments ago about teachers having such a massive influence on students, but it's not just the teachers, it's and their encouragement, but it's also their teaching practices.
Yeah.
And teaching practices and teachers in conjunction with one another can either engage or disengage a student. And society also has an impact on how students view themselves as mathematicians. If I had $1 for every single time somebody said to me, my own osteopath said it to me just the other day. She said, "Oh, I'm not any good at maths. I was never any good at maths." I'm thinking, if I had $1 for every single time I heard it, I'd be living on Bora Bora. Well, maybe not this year, but maybe Bondi. But
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's one of those things that people tend to wear as a badge of honor, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They would never, or they would rarely say that they're not good at reading or they're not good at literacy, but they would happily say that they're not good at maths.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something that is born out of, I think it's a lot of things. If you're good at maths, you're seen as a nerd.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you like maths, you're seen as a nerd.
Yeah.
If you and you're ostracized as a young child, because the majority of people, remember I said to you, that one third group of students who said to me that they didn't believe that they were any good at maths or could ever be any good at maths.
Yeah.
They were also connected with the bottom half of the second third who were saying that they lacked confidence, but they were okay with it.
Right.
And I think that impacts the adult life. And in my research, in what I've done with my participants, what I found from them was that despite the fact that they were now adults, they were now achieving in academia, they had gone through an undergraduate degree, they were now starting a master's, and they still believed from their experiences of mathematics in primary and high school and from their memories of mathematics that they were no good at it.
Right.
So that to me tells me that there's something wrong with either the way society views maths or the way society exhibits or doesn't appreciate mathematics.
That's true.
And it's one of those things. I mean, you love it, I love it. Yeah. That's why we're talking about I love maths.
Yeah.
Because of the beauty and the creativity that it provides, and the way it changes the way you think, and the way you can answer lots of science and answer so many things in the world today that because of mathematics. If we didn't have maths, none of the science would work either. So
because it's so reliant on it.
Yeah. So I think unfortunately childhood experience of maths has a massive influence on a person's adult belief.
Yeah. And this is very unfortunate to see such a thing still in modern society. I personally experienced it so many times. As soon as you say I'm doing maths, the first thing you expect to hear from people is that I'm not good at maths, or I'm bad at maths, or I hated it. So it's like a kind of a negative culture around it. I had a friend when I was doing my PhD, and she was doing PhD in maths as well. And she was talking to a lady, and the lady said, well, poor you, why you are doing to yourself? This is like a suffrage. And, being in an environment that doing maths is negative, it's kind of a suffrage. It's very hard to change. It's very hard to handle, and sometimes even being nerdy, doing maths, being good at maths is associated with being nerd or being nerdy. Is not easy to handle as a kid in particular, because I think being nerdy still is not a positive thing, and the situation gets even more difficult for girls, right? Being associated with doing nerdy stuff. So I would like to get your opinion about this. Any sort of solution you have, came up with, what we can change, what we can do to make this situation better.
Actually, I was thinking about this with regards to, because I've taught in an all-girls school, and I was very fortunate to have the support of my principal, who was she was maths and science, so she was very much keen on getting the girls involved in the mathematics. But I mean, girls are notorious for it's not saying, well, as you say, it's not saying to be cool, but they're also notorious for the self-doubt. They're more likely to not believe that they're capable of doing something than boys. Boys are more likely to turn around and, oh, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
They're two different, and I think it's the way. I don't think it's innate. I think it's the way society builds children.
Right.
We say, go ahead to the boys, go and have a try, and we say to the girls, oh, you might skin your knees.
Right.
Sit down and don't give that a go, instead of encouraging them to try something.
Yeah.
I guess with the kids with whom I worked, they felt a little bit safer working in an all-girls school or learning in an all-girls school to make to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes.
Right.
And yet, you know, all the research points to boys do better in a co-ed school and girls do better in an all-girls school. Well, what happens to the boys if all the girls are in the all-girls school? So it's
Right.
sort of, you know, there's two ways of looking at it, but there's I think girls are less likely to give it a go, and I think we need really strong role models. And I think things are changing.
Right.
We're seeing those sorts of things, but it's still we've still got a long way to go, because I think the other thing is that if a woman is successful, oftentimes she's put down
Right.
because, well, you're not supposed to be successful. It's a bit of a tall poppy type thing.
Right.
And you know, that's not the case in it. That's a bit of a generalized statement, but it does happen. You see it happening.
Yeah.
I think there's some places like AMSI that are trying to work through building capacity in young women and you know, supporting them. I work with a foundation called the Harding Miller Foundation that provides support, financial as well as physical support, to young women who are in year 8 and year 9, all the way up to year 12, who are either disadvantaged socially or who live, you know, in socially disadvantaged areas. And they do phenomenal work with these young women. And these are young women who have showed ability and capacity and willingness to work hard. So they're given a 2-year grant pretty much to provide them with resources that will support their learning. And it's a phenomenal thing to see. So I think things are changing. I think things are definitely changing.
Yeah.
But we certainly need to see a lot more role models from government. Is probably our biggest support, or the place that we can get the biggest support for young women in.
Regarding a role model, you're absolutely right, because I think it's very important, particularly as a kid, to have a strong role model that can change a lot of things. I personally had that when I was doing my high school. I was born in Iran, and on the Iranian educational system, doing maths, it's very difficult and very prestigious as well. When I was doing my high school, I knew Maryam Mirza Khani. She is the first woman who got Fields Medal. This is the most prestigious award in the world of mathematics. And she made a history by getting this award. And when I was doing my high school, she was senior than me, a few years ahead of me. And I remember back then that she was one of those first girls that she got gold medal in International Mathematics Olympiad at that time, at that age. And then she left the country to pursue her career in maths later. And then she achieved more and more and more over the years. And, and then I've got my degrees. And then I left and I moved to Australia. I've been living here for 12 years now, but I followed her because I really was interested in knowing where she's going to end up with all the talent that she had. And I was so impressed by her work. I was so impressed by the fact that she made a history to be the first woman, getting this award. And I was so happy that I knew her, from high school, and I got so upset when she gave it up to cancer. So. That was quite unfortunate, but this is fairly important. Having a strong role model, it's very important. All right, now as a professional and successful woman, I would like to know what are your pain points.
I guess if I go back to being a woman, that's an aspect of it. And this is more to do with me than it is to do with being a woman. But I think in education, there's an awful lot more women anyway. So if you look across education, unless you look in the tertiary or in high school, that's when you start to see more men creeping into the professional space. But in primary school, there's significantly more women in as primary teachers than there are than there are men. But I suspect some of that is to do with self-protection for men within the primary school.
Right.
There's also the fact that they probably enjoy doing a specific area.
Right.
For me, I guess the professional pain points or an area that may be more challenging for me is related to more my own imposter syndrome.
Right.
You know, I'm guilty of limited self-belief, and it's I have to actually physically say to myself, stop it, Karen, you're capable. Not only are you capable, but you're actually doing the job. So
Right.
you know, just get on with it. So I guess we are getting better at it, as I say, when the more role models that are out there.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
constantly need to look up and find successful people,
Mm.
and actually people who are not I wouldn't say genius, because how many genius really we have? Like, even if you look at the world of mathematics, we have very, very few. You can count them, really, really genius minds. The rest of people are normal people. They go through the challenges. They have their own self-doubt. They achieve a start. They try to break things. And I think this is important to make your reference points. And reference points are the points that it's challenge. You're under pressure. Some challenges come along, and you somehow manage to handle it. You somehow manage to break it through. You somehow manage to get it done. And then that's something that you can refer it back to later on in life and say, hey, if I could do that, I can handle this.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think those reference points are very, very important. I mean, from my own experience, I mean, I talk about imposter syndrome, and I think academics are guilty of that across the board. It doesn't matter who they are. We're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
And despite not being in academia at the moment, I guess it took, for me, I was in academia for several years before I got a teaching citation. So it was a teaching award, two teaching awards. And even after 2 teaching awards, I still sort of went, there's still a level of self-doubt that goes through your mind, despite having confidence in myself, because I do have very strong self-belief, do have a very high self-efficacy, but there is still that little voice, at the back of your head that's still saying, just be careful.
Yeah, I do get it. I do have it as well all the time, and probably most people, particularly in academia, it's just the weird space that we constantly think about the stuff that we do, and we challenge our abilities constantly. I don't know what's to do. What is this environment? What it has done to us? I have no idea. But I've seen a lot of people with that challenge, and it's a killing challenge. It's really draining your your energy. All right, cool. So my next question for you would be, what would your advice to be your 14 years old self?
My 14-year-old self. I had a fairly tumultuous childhood. Sadly, my mum passed away when I was 12, and I was the eldest of 3 children. So my 14-year-old self was busy looking after 2 younger siblings. If I had to go back and talk to myself again, I'd probably say, stop with your self-doubt. You are capable. I think if my mum had been alive, I would have gone straight to university from school.
Right.
But I didn't. I went and had a career and got married and had a couple of kids before I went on to university. And even applying for university for the first time at 34, I was still riddled with a little bit of self-doubt. So I guess I'd go back and I'd say, stop with your self-doubt. You are capable. You can do this. But I'd probably also say you need to recognize that through failures comes success. You have to make mistakes in order to learn from them. So,
Right.
and I guess the other thing I'd say is, most importantly, hang on for the ride.
And I think this is quite valuable that you share this, because it's just sharing vulnerability around this, and for someone like you being quite successful in the space of maths education, sharing this stuff, I think this is a big message for people out there that, if you're struggling, it's okay. I'm struggling with it as well.
Yeah.
What I mean? It's just, thank you for sharing that, by the way. So any check-in rituals to share with our audience?
I have several check-in rituals, actually.
Great.
And these are things that I've sort of developed over time throughout my life. I'm a very firm believer in gratitude. I heard somebody say once years ago to live your life with an attitude of gratitude, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to consider. So I start my day off by saying, thank you. I'm awake, first of all. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the opportunity to do X, Y, or Z today. I used to have, I haven't really written it much lately because I've been too busy writing the thesis, but I used to have a gratitude journal.
Right.
And then I would write down all the things that I was grateful for that had happened during that day.
Yeah.
And that has a way of switching your thinking into a positive mode. And more recently, I use this, and I carry this, that you probably can't see it. It's a little silver cylinder, but inside that cylinder, I have written down all the things that I'm grateful for.
Oh, wow.
And it's rolled up, and it's held inside that. And
wow. This is
I
great.
guess, and every now and then, you'll see me hold it, and I'll just hang on to it, and it just is a reminder that I need to be grateful. But I guess I try and focus on positivity and reflect, to celebrate achievements and learn from the mistakes, and remember, if you did stuff up, that tomorrow's another day. So
yeah, that's true. I really liked the fact that you write it down and you put it in there, because it's constantly, it's very close to you, and
it's with me. Yeah,
and it's just kind of,
I know you can't see it. It's a little.
It's inside.
It's rolled up on a piece of paper.
Yeah. I like that, because it's just constantly remind you for the things that is important for you, and you're grateful for it. It's a good one. I really like that.
Yeah.
I'm quite aware of time, and I know that you're quite a busy person and you have a lot of things to do. But if you would like to share your final message for your audience, please feel free to go ahead and share what is inside your message.
I guess if there was one message, I would probably say I would have many parents, particularly mothers, who would say to me about their daughters that the mothers would say, I was never any good at maths. I don't expect her to be any good at maths. And if I could change that in society, and people would stop saying that they were never any good and they're never going to be any good, and that's good. It's a genetic thing. It's because it's not a genetic thing.
No, it's not. No.
It is learned, and we can all learn it. As I say, it's like playing a musical instrument or playing tennis or doing anything we practice.
Right.
That if we practice it, and I've seen success. I've seen my own numeracy students be successful just because they put the effort in and they practiced. So everything's achievable. It just, I guess, get rid of this, as I'm sprouting my own words back at myself again. Stop with the self-doubt and try.
and try, push your limit, push it hard.
My mother used to say that all the time. She said, if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Try again. Yeah, I do believe in that. So I'm a
Yep.
fair believer in it. I do think that, you know, practice, that's the key. Thank you for joining me today. I really enjoy our chat. I hope that you know, you come back and we can have another great chat, because I'm pretty much sure you have a lot to say in this space of maths education. I think it's fairly important, particularly as raising awareness about this subject and psychology of it for parents. I think that's something that I'm personally really keen on that. Hopefully you can manage to come back and give us another tour.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thanks, Linda. It's been great. It's been great chatting.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us. If you're interested in maths and its applications and you think you've done a great job in this space and you have great insight to share with us, please email me on admin@bungeepi.com.au. BungeePi is bungeepi.com.au. Is also my website, so you can get a lot of information about the podcast and the whole BungeePi there. Have a great time and see you later.